Picture the headline for a second. On July 3, 2026, Travis Kelce married the biggest pop star on the planet at Madison Square Garden. That's the story that swept across the internet this week. Cameras everywhere. According to the reports, the internet reportedly losing its mind for about 72 straight hours. But here's what almost nobody is talking about in the middle of all that wedding noise. Travis Kelce didn't need Taylor Swift's money. He built a $100 million empire on his own, brick by brick, years before she ever showed up in a suite at Arrowhead Stadium. And the craziest part? Most of that empire didn't come from football. In fact, one single deal he reportedly signed is worth almost as much as his entire 14-year NFL career combined. Let me show you exactly how he did it. The football money. Let's start where everybody assumes the money came from the field. Travis Kelce was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs back in 2013, third round, pick 63. Not exactly a can't-miss prospect on paper. But over the next decade plus, he turned into arguably the greatest tight end of his generation, maybe the greatest ever to play the position. 3 Super Bowl rings: Super Bowl L4, L7, and L8. 7 straight seasons with over 1,000 receiving yards, which for a tight end is almost unheard of. Tight ends are supposed to block first, catch second. Kelce flipped that script entirely. So naturally, you'd think the guy is swimming in Scrooge McDuck money from the NFL alone, right? Let's actually run the numbers. Through the 2025 season, Kelce's career NFL earnings sit at roughly $111 million, based on publicly tracked contract data. Add in his 2026 deal, a reported $12 million guaranteed, which honestly is modest by superstar quarterback standards, and you're looking at somewhere around $123 million total, spread out across 14 years of playing professional football. Now, $123 million sounds like an enormous number, and it is. But here's where it gets interesting. Because $123 million over 14 years is not how you build a $100 million net worth after you factor in taxes, agent fees, living expenses, family support, and everything else that eats into an athlete's paycheck. NFL players, even great ones, routinely go broke after retirement because they assume the money lasts forever. It doesn't. So if Kelce is sitting comfortably at roughly $100 million net worth today, a figure estimated by outlets that track athlete wealth, the real money had to come from somewhere else, and it did. The podcast that changed everything. Here's the payoff. Here's the thing almost nobody talks about when they talk about Travis Kelce's money. Back in 2022, Travis and his brother Jason Kelce, former Philadelphia Eagles center, fellow Super Bowl champion, launched a podcast called New Heights. At first it was just 2 brothers talking football, trading stories from an NFL locker room, being funny, being real. Nothing fancy, no corporate polish. Just 2 guys who happened to be really good at being themselves on a microphone. That podcast blew up. And I mean it genuinely blew up, top of the charts. Millions of downloads per episode. Guests ranging from NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell to, yes, eventually, Taylor Swift herself sitting in that chair. And here's the number that should stop you in your tracks. Amazon's Wondery reportedly signed New Heights in a deal pegged at around $100 million. That figure comes from industry reporting on the deal, not an official public breakdown. These media contracts almost never publish full terms, but even the more conservative estimates floating around still land in 9-figure territory. Let that sink in for a second. One podcast deal is reportedly worth almost as much as everything Travis Kelce earned on an NFL field across 14 years of hits, injuries, training camps, and Super Bowl runs. Think about that comparison. 14 years of catching passes, blocking 300-pound linemen, getting his body destroyed on a weekly basis, versus sitting in a studio chair a couple times a week, talking into a microphone with his brother. The podcast, dollar for dollar, nearly matches the entire football career. Why did it work so well? A few reasons. First, authenticity. Audiences are exhausted by scripted, polished media, and New Heights felt like eavesdropping on a real family conversation. Second, the brother chemistry. Jason and Travis have a dynamic you genuinely cannot manufacture. The older, grounded brother playing off the younger, chaotic superstar. And third, and let's be honest here, perfect timing with the Taylor Swift phenomenon. Once Taylor started showing up at Chiefs games in September 2023, New Heights wasn't just a football podcast anymore. It became one of the most talked about media properties in the entire country, and Amazon clearly knew exactly what they were buying into. That's the whoa moment of this whole story. Travis Kelce didn't get rich because he was a great tight end. He got rich because he understood, earlier than almost any other athlete, that the media platform was worth more than the roster spot. The lifestyle and assets. So where does all that money actually go once it comes in? Kelce owns a mansion in the Kansas City area that he reportedly upgraded specifically for privacy once the Taylor Swift relationship became public. High walls, serious security. The whole setup. When your partner is arguably the most photographed woman on earth, privacy stops being a luxury and starts being a necessity you pay for. Then there's the car collection, nothing outrageous by celebrity standards, but a rotating lineup that reportedly includes a Range Rover, a Rolls-Royce Cullinan, and at least one high-performance sports car he's been spotted driving around Kansas City. Kelce isn't the flashiest guy with cars compared to some athletes, but the collection has quietly grown in value over the last few years. Endorsements are where things really exploded. Before the Super Bowl runs, Kelce had a solid but unspectacular endorsement portfolio, deals with brands like Bud Light and a handful of regional partners worth a few $100,000 a year. After back-to-back championship runs, and especially after the Taylor Swift relationship became public, his endorsement value multiplied. Today he's reportedly earning several $1 million a year from partnerships with major names Nike, State Farm, and Campbell's, among them all wanting a piece of the most talked-about athlete in America. And then there's the business side most people miss entirely. Kelce co-founded a production company, Kelce Enterprises, tied to the New Heights brand, which develops additional shows and content beyond the flagship podcast. He's also reportedly invested in a hospitality venture back home in Cleveland, plus a stake in a tequila brand and other consumer products that carry his name recognition, without requiring him to strap on shoulder pads. On top of that, Kelce runs a charitable foundation, the 87 and Running Foundation, which has reportedly funneled millions toward underprivileged kids in Kansas City and Cleveland, proof that at least some of this fortune is designed to outlast the highlight reels. This is the part that separates athletes who stay rich from athletes who go broke. Kelce isn't just collecting paychecks, he's building assets and institutions that generate value long after he stops playing football. The Taylor factor. Now, let's talk about the relationship, but let's talk about it the way this channel talks about everything, through the numbers. As the story goes, the relationship began in September 2023, when Taylor started showing up in that now famous Chiefs suite. Coverage at the time pointed to an engagement around August 2025. And per the reports circulating this week, a wedding at Madison Square Garden on July 3, 2026. Whatever the precise details end up being confirmed as, the cultural moment is very real, and so is the financial contrast worth talking about. Here's the financial reality behind the fairy tale. This isn't one empire merging into another, these are two completely separate fortunes standing side by side. Taylor Swift's net worth is estimated at roughly $2 billion, built through decades of music sales, sold-out stadium tours, master recording ownership, and one of the most successful re-recording strategies in music history. Travis Kelce, by comparison, sits at roughly $100 million. Run that math, and Taylor is worth somewhere around 20 times what Travis is worth. And yet, even at 20 times less than his partner, Travis Kelce is still one of the richest players in the entire National Football League. That single comparison tells you everything about how absurd Taylor Swift's wealth actually is. And it tells you everything about how well Kelce has managed his own money outside of football. He's not rich by NFL standards because he threw a ball well. He's rich because he built a media empire almost nobody saw coming. So Travis Kelce proved something that most NFL players never figure out in their entire careers. The field is just the starting point. It gets your name known, it gets you the platform, but the real empire, the $100 million net worth. The podcast deal reportedly worth almost as much as 14 years of football. The endorsements, the investments, all of that gets built off the field, after the whistle blows, when everyone else has already stopped paying attention. If a $100 million podcast deal shocked you, wait until you see the athlete making 3 times that in a single year. Cristiano Ronaldo's reported $300 million a year empire at 41 years old, still playing at the highest level. That breakdown is right here. And if you want the real numbers behind every athlete's fortune, subscribe, because that's exactly what this channel does. Every single time.